Hello, volleyball coaches, friends, and supporters. My name is Dave Neeley, high school volleyball coach coming at you from Provo, Utah, and I'm super excited to be joined by the new head coach at the University of Louisville. We've talked to him before on GMS Live. His name is Dan Meske. He's been an assistant coach at Louisville. Dan, you've helped the Cardinals get to three of the past four NCAA Final Fours. You've been National Assistant Coach of the Year, honored by the AVCA. You've helped with the blocking and defensive schemes at Louisville. And I still remember this last episode we did with you and Danny, some amazing nuggets and teaching cues that you gave us that I still remember as a coach and that we talk about at some of our GMS clinics. So Dan, congratulations on the new job, and thanks for wanting to hang out with us for a little bit today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. So two things. It's still weird being introduced as the head coach at Louisville, but I'm getting used to it. And number two is if you want to sound local, you got to go Louisville, almost just
Okay.
all O's. Just got to let it roll off the tongue. But if you're outside of the state of Kentucky, Louisville is the only, they don't, that's the only thing they know what you're talking about.
So we were talking a few days ago. I've only been there once. I didn't go to the Kentucky Derby. Unfortunately, I have been to the Bat Factory though. So anyway, congratulations. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan, a lot of coaches probably know you as a coach that has this amazing Instagram account. And you told me a couple days ago that a few years ago you decided that you wanted to help Louisville become the most accessible college volleyball program in the country. And you decided to take coaches into your practices, into your game planning, into your training sessions with your Instagram account. And we talk at our clinics, how do coaches get coaching methods? And most every coach says, well, I coach how my coach coached me. And then some coaches will say, well, I coach how I see the Louisville women's volleyball team playing when I watch the national championship match on ABC. And some coaches might say, I get on Google and I YouTube how to coach volleyball. And these are all ways that coaches can get coaching methods. And it wouldn't shock me at all, Dan, if a lot of volleyball coaches around the country or even around the world are getting some of their coaching methods from your Instagram account. Do you have any idea? I'm going to give you a trivia question. How many views your Instagram reels have racked up over the past couple years?
I feel like you're going to tell me. Early in my posting and just kind of getting our program out there, I remember hitting the first one that hit 1 million, and I was like, "Oh my God, 1 million views!" I remember the first one that hit 100,000, six
Yeah.
figures, and then there was a stretch there where it just seemed like so many were hitting those that I did kind of lose count. But I feel like you're about to tell me, and it's probably going to blow me away.
So I can't do one of these shows without some sort of data and some sort of analytics, as you know from the last time we did one of these. Take a guess. Just take a wild guess.
I might be over, but I know the video we're looking at here, we'll probably talk about first, had over 20 on its own, 20 million. And man, I've posted 600 times, maybe 80 million, maybe 60, between 60 and 80 million.
Okay, double that because you're at 161
Oh,
million views, your reels all combined. Um, and most
wow.
of that is just since the beginning of 2023. So we're looking
Wow.
at
Wow.
just kind of a 24-month project here.
That's pretty amazing. So like you mentioned, we started doing this because for me, I love what we're doing at Louisville. I wanted to make that as accessible as I could to all coaches, not just college, high school, anybody. Some of the most feedback that I get from Instagram, DMs, questions, comments, things like that is like the dad who's starting to coach their daughter for the first time ever. She's coaching their 10s team, their 11s team, and they watch a video like the one we're probably going to watch here. And it's like, I can do that with my team and I can say these cue words. Like this really is helpful to me. And that's something that keeps driving me is that this isn't always just, hey, this is the top thing that you should ever try. This is the best, never get bored with the basics. So to hear we've had 160 million views is pretty cool because again, we talked about the goal was to make us as accessible as possible, and I think we're creeping towards that goal with 160 million views. That's pretty wild when I say that out loud.
Yeah, it's awesome and super fun. It's at Dan Meske on Instagram, and also Dan, you're the host of a podcast called Out of Rotation.
Yeah, so right about the same time the Instagram stuff started, I've always loved podcasts. I've always, I love figuring things out. So I didn't know anything about audio, anything about how to edit video, edit audio, any of that stuff. So it was just kind of, some people have a midlife crisis where they buy like a convertible or whatever. My midlife crisis was I started posting on Instagram and I created a podcast. It was a new thing for me to try. And I was very fortunate at the time. I was an assistant and I had worked with Danny Busboom Kelly, our head coach here at the time, for so long that a lot of what I needed to do on a day-to-day basis I had done for years. And I was doing it at a really high level and I was really confident in that. It gave me a lot of time for creative thinking. And a lot of what filled that time was new endeavors. And that was the Instagram thing, the podcast thing. So I'm forever indebted to Danny to work with somebody that I was able to do that. Cause, I look at, as a head coach now, I've got so many things on my plate. If I was to just think about doing this now, I don't think I'd have the time to carve out for something as unique as this.
Yeah.
Because it's not always so direct how it serves your program, but I think it serves the greater good of volleyball.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I've learned some things and gotten some ideas. So back to the methods, we talk about when we're getting these methods from just watching a match on ESPN, or we see your Instagram account, or we Google something and read an article. Those methods are fine, but we want coaches to know the why behind the what they're seeing. And so, Dan, we're going to take a unique approach over the next little bit as we go through this show, and we're going to watch your Instagram reels and let you explain to us the why behind the what we're seeing. And so we're going to talk about some techniques, some fundamentals, some tactics throughout a course of different skill sets, blocking, setting, serving, passing. But before we do that, Dan, just answer this question. How important is it that volleyball players have good fundamentals?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it earlier. The best never get bored with the basics. So I think fundamentals can come in a lot of different ways, though, because, a three-step approach, left, right, left, that's not going to get reinvented. That's a pretty basic concept within our sport. But then as you start to go with timing, it's like, okay, when do I take that first step? Do I add a fourth step because I'm going out of system, because I'm getting bigger and stronger? But as far as the fundamentals go, that's again another reason why I post so much of this is like you would think, okay, Louisville, you watched this last year, we're in the national championship. What crazy magic are they doing in their gym? And you'll watch a lot of what we do, and it's really simple, basic stuff that most people are doing in their gyms. But to find yourself in matches like that, you've got to do the simple things better than everybody else. And a lot of times we forget about those simple things and start going, man, in the big match, it's going to come down to this out of system that has to be perfectly on point. And really, it doesn't. It just comes down to like not getting aced in the big moment. And it's just a very basic skill. So, yeah, fundamentals. And like I said, the best never get bored with the basics is something you'll hear in our gym quite a bit.
All right. So let's talk about how you start practices. You talked about practices. If we were to go to Louisville practice, we're going to start with some sort of warm up. And we'll play this video. This is your most viewed video, but you have you have several videos that are kind of similar to this. Just walk us through what we're seeing here and what you like about it. And is this an everyday thing?
Yeah, this is an everyday thing, and I like that you cut up the different videos. We're going through a couple different clips here, but this is our bounce series, which is a very clever name because we're bouncing the ball under the net. But a big key in our gym, and another thing too, when we talk about warming up, you're going to see this in our gym about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes after practice has started. Now, at that point, we've served some balls and we've done some live serve and pass, so our arms are pretty warm, but we haven't attacked a ton of balls over the net. So the first part of our practice is a lot of non-attacking. It's serve and pass, it's defense, it's blocking and defending, where maybe we have some managers or practice players that are doing the attacking, you're just kind of defending. And then once it's time to amp up and play 6-on-6 and our team is doing the attacking, you'll see this drill. So it's kind of a weird drill that you see right in the middle of practice because we feel like it kind of re-warms up the arm and kind of engages your core. But what you're seeing here is weight transfer. So if I worked my way up as these videos go through and you just look at their feet, you're seeing a right to left. Now we're going to our attack. But if I were to
Yep.
back up on that bounce series, that's kind of the arm warm up. And here you go. So right to left, and you're seeing those hips twist. So as I work my way and kind of my attention as a coach upward, I've got weight on the right foot. And then if you let this one play for Ellie,
Yeah.
then I go weight.
So what are we watching with the hips here? You talked about the hip rotating.
And of course, whoever made this reel put his, put that big arm swing work daily so big you can't quite see her foot. But right now, she just went from she went from right to left with her weight. So right now, she
Yep.
could, before she starts the movement, she could pick her left foot off the ground because there's no weight on it. And then when she finishes this swing, which you're about to see right here, she could pick her back foot up because there's no weight on it. And as our players get better at this, that's almost like a dance move where every time I'm tossing, they're shifting that weight. Once that's good, we kind of work up to how that hip is going to look. And you watch the better of our players with this, their hips are going to twist like that right there from Kara Cressy. So
Uh-huh.
that right hip is twisting as she's attacking that ball, and then it's resetting to me on the next toss. So we're kind of working the body, how the body works to create torque and create a lot of power with their arm from the ground up. So really the arm is the pretty irrelevant part of this. It's all about the body. It's all about how we kind of use the ground for power and for torque and momentum. Um, and the big thing about this one though is now I'm tossing that one-handed. I've tossed this. You said 160 million views. I've probably tossed this 160 million times. So like your toss has to be really good. And
Yeah.
so when they start in that bow and arrow position, I'm aiming for that left hand. And when we teach younger players, we say right before you could touch it with your left hand, swing through with your right. And we don't talk about, have your elbow go up or have your elbow go back. We just say, just get your hand there. So some of them aren't twisting and they're just kind of connecting on the ball. And as they start to open up and they watch the better players, it's called bounce. They're trying to bounce that thing. And there's two versions of this. The first one is at the net, under the net. And then you saw another version of that later. It's at the 10-foot line and it's
Yeah.
bounce and go over the net, which is a little
Yeah.
bit tougher because you really got to get on top of that ball. But the toss is really, really important on this. If you aren't nailing the toss, then their body isn't naturally learning what they're doing. And a big theme in our gym with a lot of what we teach is the drill should kind of teach everything. Like if we set this up correctly, you can't help but do it successfully. Like if you want to find success in the drill, your body, your fundamentals, your movement is all going to have to be good. It's not me telling you it needs to be here and then there and then over there. The drill will teach it. So that's what this one, what I think is a big key.
So these balls are going over the net from the
This one is
10-foot line?
version 2. Yeah. So
Okay.
again, if I were to just go through exactly how this looks live, each player would attack two balls and rotate from inside the 10-foot line with the ball going under the net. And then everybody would do the exact same thing, but behind the 10-foot line, and the
Okay.
ball would bounce over the net. That happens with our entire team in about 90 seconds, maybe less. And then we move to over the net. And we're just doing a two-step approach. So it goes really quick because it's a daily activity for us. But what these hitters are doing is they're starting with their left foot on the 10-foot line. And then as I throw, they go, which is a great key that
Okay.
I've taken from Gold Medal Squared
Yep.
blatantly. I love that cue of, I throw, you go, or you go, then I'll time you and I throw. I really like that cue. We use that a lot with our younger players. So
So 20 million people have seen these videos. Can those 20 million people screw this up somehow if they don't know exactly where that toss needs to be or exactly
um,
what the players need to be doing here?
again, the toss is very, very important. And we're doing this daily. Kara Cressy's doing that. She's done that for 4 years in our gym. So there's a rhythm to it. There's a speed to it. As you're learning this, the toss should be slower. The toss should be toss, okay, reset. And I would maybe even with the younger players say, pick your left foot up. There should be no weight there. I'm going to toss
Okay.
again. Okay, finish your swing and freeze. Now pick your right foot up. There should be no weight there. So we would go slow to work up to something like this. Now, the great thing about college programs, which I love, is that you come in as a freshman and you've got this great, again, I'll use Kara Cressy, who's a fifth year for us. We're going to have a freshman middle come in this year who's, done a version of this maybe, but she'll watch Kara Cressy do this every day. And within 2 weeks, she will start to kind of mimic this player who's really refined this over 5
Yep.
years of a career. So we'll slow it down and give her time to learn. But the great thing is when you have players that can already kind of do these things, that can kind of teach by showing, that is what I think really gets the momentum going with our program from just a skill standpoint, from a skill development standpoint.
And so it's 6 total swings. Each athlete is doing 6 of these.
Yeah, it would be between 6 and 12 each day. So
Okay.
I would say on a day like this, it's probably 2 in front, 2 behind, and then 3 to 4 that are over the net. So it's again about 90 seconds of really just a technique, skills based attacking warm up. And part of it too is just kind of just reactivating our shoulder and just getting our
Okay.
shoulder ready to hit as hard as humanly possible.
Yep. Okay, so I went out of order mistakenly because I've never been to one of your practices, Dan, although I should come
No,
out
no
to Louisville
worries.
and come to one. But
Always
now let's go
invited.
to the beginning, right? So this might be closer to the beginning of
That
your
was a great
practice.
one.
And just uh, we can walk into any club practice nationwide and see the traditional bump, set, spike, bump, set, spike, bump, set, spike. You've posted all these reels and you have all these warm up ideas, warm up with a ball, different pepper variations. Um, First, before we get to different pepper variations, just why do we want to warm up with a volleyball in our hands?
Yeah, so our time is so limited, and in college, I feel like, man, we have such an opportunity because we have 5 6 days out of the week, a good chunk of the year. Where club is usually the highest level that players play, but they only get 2 or 3 hours twice a week. So for me, especially when I watch club practices, if they're not into something really volleyball specific within the first 10 minutes of practice, I'm like, man, this is tough. So for us, this is a lot of different things you'll see for our warm-ups. And for us, it's a long season. So yeah, the mental kind of reset of like the very first one you saw was like very silly. And
Yeah,
I don't know if we've done that more than like once every month. Like that's not an every week thing, but it's like that's not the worst waste of time to do once every couple of weeks or once every 3 weeks just to keep it fun. And a lot of our best memories are from camp, and that's a total camp drill.
yeah.
So why not just throw that in? And that was a credit. That was an old one. I saw Danny Busboom Kelly was running that warm up, and I was actually filming that. I always get asked who films this, and a lot of times it's a manager
Yeah,
that she's like putting balls in while she's filming. She's excellent. But I actually did that one. A lot of what you're seeing here is just creative ways to maybe eliminate pepper. So pepper we do on game day because of splitting up the court and the opponent there, but we really don't do a lot of pepper because what you saw there, like just attacking wise, yeah, like I mean, there's maybe a reason to be doing it, but we don't like pepper on practice. Now this is a game day warm up, so we've got some movement involved. This instead of just running around the court, just keep the ball as part of what we're doing. So for
yeah,
us, if we do this 5 6 days a week, that adds up to probably an extra at least 30 to 35 minutes of actually touching the volleyball,
yeah.
which I just think at any level that's the most important thing. So man, it's crazy all the different drills here. You're bringing me back to memory lane. I'm like, these are great. Like some of these I'm like, we haven't done this in like a month or so, but
Yeah.
again, you haven't seen really pepper. I don't think there might be one
Nope.
version of, okay, here's a pepper that you can do, because we do pepper sometimes, but you'll see a lot more of this kind of stuff. That's multiple people, different angles. We like to use the net a lot more if we can. I think there's a version of like a 2-on-2 over the net, but just keeping it unique, keeping it kind of challenging, and keeping it volleyball specific. But this will be the first thing that you see in our gym most days before, a normal kind of stretch, and we'll activate different muscles and things like that. We may do a dynamic warm up before this, but a lot of times this is the first thing we do. This is not in place of a dynamic warm up, but it's the first kind of movement in the gym.
So, so I like you, I'm not, you're not going to see traditional pepper in my practices, but one of our seniors last year, we won the state championship, and then I'm doing some kind of post season exit interviews. And one of the boys said, I don't like that you didn't let us do pepper because it's my favorite volleyball drill. Just pepper is the best volleyball drill ever. And I'm with you, Dan. I like these drills a lot more. What kind of pushback do you get when you're like, we don't need to just do normal pepper like these drills? Maybe even if it's bump to ourselves, set, and then spike,
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
partner's gonna bump, set, and then spike. Like just putting some twists on traditional pepper, I think, is valuable. But how do you convince your players that this is more valuable than maybe what they grew up doing?
Well, I think probably once every 2 weeks we have a pepper where it's like, hey, we're trying to get into playing really quick today. And obviously we pepper on game day. So we're like, all right, you got 2 3 minutes to warm up your shoulder and pepper. And then we're going to get into a little serve pass. We'll hit some balls over the net and we're going to play. So we'll use that as kind of what a game day would feel like. But For the most part, no. I mean, I think this is as mentally engaging, if not more, obviously, than pepper. So we don't get a bunch of pushback from that. It's funny when you brought up your player talking about how they love pepper. It's like my kids the other day were outside of our house across the street playing knockout for basketball. It's like,
Yeah.
to me, almost the pepper version for basketball. Like knockout is not a great basketball drill, but it's like if you do a basketball practice, you don't play knockout. They'll be like, "What were we? Did we even practice?" You know. At least that one's competitive though. Like I was watching that and I was like, at least there's this
Yeah.
competition aspect to it. Pepper doesn't even have any competition to it. It's just like throwing the ball around. So again, I'm not a huge fan of pepper, but you will see it sporadically and you certainly will see it on game day because of the limited space that we have.
Dan, I like basketball knockout because it fits my skill set perfectly. Miss the shot, get the quick rebound, and then just lay it up and in. And in fact,
There
you
you
can get
go.
really good at just bank missing. It comes right back at you,
Yeah.
and then you lay it up and in. Okay, so how much of your practice is warm up? Like is
So
this
this
five
right here,
minutes at
you're
the
going to
beginning, 10
see.
minutes?
Yeah, this right here you're going to see for probably no more than 5 minutes. So it's going to be some type of drill like that. And then we've posted a lot of this of like what to do on game days. And
Yeah.
the great thing is you look at some of these comments, and I can't read a ton of these all that quickly, but sometimes the comments, like there you go, Pablo said very slow, thumbs down. And it's like you get some negative stuff, but then also sometimes you
Yeah.
get some good feedback and you get like, hey, what if you tried this? And it's like, I don't know, maybe we will try that. So it's not always the worst thing to get some feedback and get. It's funny, I didn't get a chance to go through, but normally you'll see all those hearts liked from the author because it's like, especially the negative ones, I just click like and then I just move on. It's a very healthy way to interact with negativity. But again, I like getting the feedback from that stuff too because I think it's like it's almost like crowdsourcing what you're doing. I think that's, originally when I first started doing it, it's like, oh, are people going to think this is any good or whatever? And it's like, I don't care. This is like what we're doing and we're constantly trying to make it better ourselves. So anyways, that's just kind of a tangent on those comments there because some of them make me laugh.
Yep. Walk us through this one real quick because we're working on multiple defensive moves kind of all in this sequence of three. So
We got Charity Looper and Iko Jones there. Iko playing for the vibe, and then Charity playing for the thrill now. But this has been like a mainstay of if we're in a normal pepper, this is kind of how we end. And we do an attack, come to the attacker and play a tip, and then you go do a chase ball. And sometimes we're working on, I think Iko, she goes with two hands. But sometimes there we make them kind of work on that one-handed scoop, kind of last effort reach. But again, just a little bit of movement, a little bit of activity, kind of get the sweat going before practice. But this is more of the type of quote unquote pepper that you will see. You certainly won't see pass, set,
yeah.
hit back, pass, set, hit back. You won't see that for a minute or two any longer than that. It's usually some variation of, okay, what's some skill that we can work into that partner work. But partners in general, you will not see that for more than 5 minutes in our gym.
And
What's the silly one here? We haven't
we've
done
seen
that
a
drill in
lot
a
of
long
different
time.
we've seen a lot of different variations here, Dan. Are you busting like one of these out every month, or do you have one that you're doing most of the time, and then these
Uh,
other ones
you
are kind
know,
of one-offs?
a lot of these are one-offs, and I think that that's a good time. Like I've seen some of these that I'm like, man, we do that once a week or once every 2 weeks, and I've seen some of these that I'm like, we only did that once, or we've done
Okay.
that once a year, because it's like the beginning of practice is the time to explore that. Like we do drills sometimes that are kind of duds. This one kind of blew up too with the ladder. One big thing, actually, one of the first things I was kind of posting a lot about was that we don't really run as a volleyball program.
Yep.
We certainly don't run more than, a 10-yard sprint or anything like that. We bike more for cardio if we have to do things like that. And then we love the ladder. So that was a big theme kind of early on when I was posting of like, again, similar with the pepper. It's just like there's no reason for our volleyball team to have these big kind of running challenges. One thing we inherited as a program when we got here it's right out the window for me right here. There's a cardio path, which I think is about a three-quarters of a mile. It's right kind of in the middle of campus here. And it was kind of the entry back into the fall. You had to run the cardio path in a certain amount of time. And we had players on our team that would have like legitimate anxiety attacks about this running test. And we were like, why are we having anxiety about running in volleyball? So we just really swung the pendulum the other way. And we're just like, we're not doing any running. We're not doing any. We're going to do ladder. We'll do block trips. We're going to make it volleyball specific. And we actually had a lot of positive feedback on that, obviously. But then we actually had a lot of growth within our program too.
Well, I remember when I asked you a question a couple years ago, how did Danny and you and your staff when you came in 2015, right? Or
2017, 2017.
2017, and it was just an immediate turnaround from the year before. And the answer you gave that it just resonates with me is we just focused on volleyball. We
Yep.
focused on volleyball and nothing but volleyball, and we let all the other stuff, like, we're not a cross country team. We're a volleyball team. We're gonna go focus on the volleyball. So
Well, we took by at that time we were I'm sorry, we were six, I think it was 6 hours of strength conditioning and 2 hours of volleyball was what you could have for 2 months of the year when we got hired. So of that 6 hours of strength conditioning, we said we're going to take two of those. You can do that four in the weight room, squat, you can do your cleans, whatever. The two of them, we're going to go on the volleyball court and we're going to do our version of strength and conditioning. No volleyball because we're going to stay within the NCAA rules. We're going to do block trips. We're going to do defensive movement. We're going to do everything possible to make it volleyball specific. And that's exactly what you were talking about, where we were just like, let's carve out as much
yeah.
volleyball as we can. And that was really important for us.
Now you have a bunch of different kind of over the net games. This is a pepper exchange, but we're gonna see some
It's nice to
short
be
court.
6'6". She hit from the ground there.
You know,
Um,
you're talking
Two
about the
things on this.
comments, Dan, and so many comments on
No.
these posts say, "Why is the net so low?"
I get that all the time. People think that the net's low, and it never has been once. If anything, our practice nets are an inch high. This was a great one. And actually, the blue tape on the floor, I always get asked about that. It's usually
Yeah.
not the drill we're doing. That was for some D-ball defense. I think we were prepping to play Pitt here, and this
Uh-huh.
was like the warm-up the day before at our kind of open practice. But this is a great one I think we took from another Instagram we saw where you can jump and hit on anything but the third contact. That's a great
Yep.
one. If there's any way to back up to that first one, what I really
Yeah.
like about that pepper exchange that we did right here, two things to point out really quickly. One is the double noodle. One thing
Uh-huh.
that we've seen as we have higher level athletes is to create like a dead zone on the court where a lot of times people just put one noodle and you kind of share exactly right there and you share the sideline.
A
And
sideline.
we would have collisions or you'd have some pursuit. And that's not the biggest space in the world, but that little space helps with safety a ton because you can even see the setter right there is standing in the
Yep.
dead space.
Yep.
So we've created this space so that we can stick with this drill because again, any of this stuff that you do and anything in your gym in particular, the number one thing should be safety. The absolute number one thing. If you're doing something that you can't execute safely, it's not worth doing. So for us, it's like if we do this drill for 10 years and there's like two ankle turns, like we need to figure out why that is. Like
Yeah.
that should never happen if we can do anything drill wise. So we've changed this to where pepper exchange, we've got that dead zone. I really like it. I think everybody should think about doing that for safety. But again, different variations that you're seeing here. I love that the 6'6" kid who doesn't have to jump to hit, which is always
I
fun.
know.
But we
Why
have
is the
so many
net
different
so
variations.
low?
Exactly. And of course, she's partnered up with the shortest kid on the team to make it seem even crazier. This is a
So,
fun one. I
yeah.
got called about this one the other day from a club coach. They're like, we couldn't figure this one out. This is a great one where it's one contact only with two balls. And the second the first ball goes down, now it's normal trips.
Yep.
And this got so competitive in our drill. This will be a mainstay in our gym for sure. We did this multiple times this spring. And we go back row attacking only on this. But you have to win both balls to get the point on that drill we just saw. So one ball goes down. Let's say side A won that ball. We rally it out on trips after that, and side B wins it. It's a wash. Both teams rotate out, new team's on, and we play side versus side. You just stay on
Okay.
your side. This is a great one. Tons of movement.
Yeah.
Really like that one a lot.
It's a little bit like what the USA national team calls Baggerone.
Yeah, so I think it's a
Yeah.
version of bagger. Like a lot of the stuff people will bring to me or our staff will be like, we got it. The girls really want to do this thing they saw. I don't really do TikTok very much, but it's on TikTok or it's whatever. And then we try it and we give credit if we just blatantly steal it or we make it our own. But we're always open to giving credit for where we got these drills because, like most great things in coaching, a lot of it's just great ideas that are stolen.
Yep. So you talked a few minutes ago that someone would think, hey, that's Louisville, team that's going to the Final Four every year. Their practices must be just totally next level. But we could do this with our high school JV team or our
Heck yeah.
14-year-old club team.
Oh my God, look at this one. Right on cue, we're playing yoga ball. This was my son was dying for me to play. I think they did this in camp once, and my son came to camp and he's like, "Have you played that with the girls in a while?" And I was like, "No." But again, everything I think we've seen in this segment for the most part that was warm up based is about 5 minutes of practice. And we've got 2 to 3 hours of practice and we're working at a fast pace. But, for 5 minutes to get, some laughs, to get some competitive juices flowing, to me, that's more important than, again, peppering or just making it so just kind of dry sometimes.
So your caption
But
here says, if you aren't playing this in your gym, you are doing it wrong.
people love captions like that. And I don't remember who I got this from because I remixed this one. That's another thing I started doing is when I saw great, especially when I see there's so much great footage, like all the pro volleyball we have, PVF, LOVB,
Uh-huh.
they have these great cameras and they'll do slow-mos of players and you can click remix. And so I can post it and I can point some things out. So this was one that I remixed from, I don't remember what group, but I
Yeah.
like that one too because it's just really fast paced. And this is our speedball right here. And I think we're going 2-on-2. There's so many different versions of this.
Yeah.
We had one of our pro players was back in this one. But yeah, I love when they get competitive. And this is another thing with these drills too that I think helps with competition is that we'll give them like the 3 rules. Okay. And it's not always the same. It's not like, hey, we're just playing this game, go play it. We'll give them the 3 rules. You can't hit on the third ball. You got to go off a live serve. Uh, Maybe that's it. And then you see what they do with it because we didn't say you can't hit front row. But if you do that with a team, sometimes they'll just assume, oh, it feels like queens. We're just
Yeah.
going to play only. And it's like, no, I didn't say that. Like, you need to, again, it goes with that competitive mindset of like, find out the rules and
Yeah.
then find out how to win within those rules. And I love seeing creative thinking with that.
Well, and it lets you work on some of these volleyball skills that I've just highlighted here in your caption. You can, find an open spot on the court. You can communicate with each other. You can read what's going on. Yeah, just
So,
lots of touches and competitive environment.
and when I talked about my kiddos, 10, 8, and 6, and one of the drills that they always ask for is speedball, and they love to play speedball catching. And when you watch the mind of a young child, just like balancing the court, making a
Yeah.
fake and throwing it the other way, it's like this is volleyball. Like this is volleyball, them trying to score when they get older, and they can control the ball with past that hit. But speedball is just such a
Yeah.
great game for all ages.
So this
Oh, this
is
is a good one.
tipping only 3 versus 3.
3v3. So I have to give John Klanick of Purdue credit on this one. And we actually did the Auto Rotation podcast. We did, I forget what episode, but the greatest volleyball drill ever. We did this drill at a coach's clinic that John and I were at. And actually, I'm sorry, John did this drill and I was kind of demoing. And it was, coaches clinics are hard sometimes. We were using a 12-year-old team, people we haven't used before, and it's a brand new drill. And this tore the house down. And yeah, so if you take anything from, excuse me, all of these reels that we've done, this is a fantastic drill. So 3-on-3 and liberos. I think if there's a team of liberos, they usually get an extra one. But then when you're waiting to come off, it's just one rally, and whoever wins is going to run under the net, so you get that kind of active movement. And whoever's the next in line will take that opens court, and then the ball comes in quickly. And so it's again the scoring's right there. So 0 to 15 is tipping only. 15 to 20, if you go back there, is back row attacks only. And then
Oh,
20 to
yep.
25 is just live everything. And that's for the specific team. So each team is trying to score 25 points. But what I love about this one, again, it's the competition thing. It's like you got to know your score so you know what you can do to have an advantage. But then you also need to know the other team's score. The other team's got 21 and they can hit front row. We better get up there and block. They've only got 20. They can only hit back row. Let's stay back. It's tipping only. Now we really got to balance the court. But again, tons of movement. Again, not running laps, not stretching. It's just a
Yeah.
great way to get loose and get the competitive juices going.
How often are you varying what we're doing or what we're seeing here? So sometimes it's short court, sometimes it's speedball, sometimes it's the 3 versus 3 games.
All the time. So it's crazy when I don't think I've ever looked at all these reels back to back to back to back. 2-on-2 speedball, greatest drill ever. Almost everything we've watched is usually the first 5 to 10 minutes of practice. So the variety that we have, I think really helps with kind of the freshness and the culture that we have because it's just a great way to start practice. So again, we're mixing it up constantly. Like a lot of these, I'm like, man, I didn't know we had that many of these. Chaos ball, this is awesome.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
one
this is
seems pretty
again, this is
wild.
yeah, this one's wild. So this one's no jumping to hit. That's why, because you would, again, safety first, right? But this was a 3 contact with both balls going. But again, when you put all these back to back, it's almost like when you told me the 160 million views. It's like, look at the bank of drills that we'll kind of give to our team to creatively think, to
Yeah.
try and compete, to try to figure things out. Because that's what a volleyball game is. I mean, you're not gonna. You can prep for it. You can talk about, hitter tendencies and this rotation. They like doing this, but when the ball gets served, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be something different you maybe didn't prep for. You have to be resilient. You have to be gritty. So this has been pretty cool to go through all this.
How much time do you have to spend teaching the drill? That would be one of my concerns, right? If you've got these 30 different warm-up drills, you're only going to run it for 5 minutes, but does it take you 5 to 10 just to teach it?
I hope not. So again, if you look at how many of these we've done, our team is very, very, here's another thing. And this is another thing that GMS, I know you guys are pretty big on, is a cauldron, right? We have a cauldron board. So a live scoreboard for the year, for 6-on-6 drills and for non 6-on-6 drills. And so for these warm-up games, these are for cauldron points. So we're going to give you the 3 rules, and we're going to set up, and there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And the winner gets to put their point on the board. So you better find the skill of listening to the game, understanding the rules, and figuring out how to win. So I do think in our gym, that skill of being explained something one time, and then maybe you break the rules and find out, okay, I got to hone that in, but at least you're trying to compete and win at all times. So what you're talking about, we don't run into a ton. I think because you see the variety that we have, it's almost like an extra skill that our players have.
Yeah,
It's
they're
like
just good
learning
learners.
quickly,
Yeah.
learning quickly. There's another 6'6" player hitting from the ground. I mean, that was like a
Yep.
bounce.
And then the
A
comments,
lot of
of
no
course, why are
jumping
the
to
nets
start.
so low?
Exactly. This was
Um,
after about 18 hours of flying time. So the coaches wanted to get loose too. This was for trying to keep the ball below the tape. People shredded this one. They hated this one. And it was like, this was part of a stations. So we got off the flight. This was in Brazil. And we had 3 stations going where we had coach movement with the ball staying low and just kind of getting reaction time. On the other side, I think we had an auto system setting. I can't remember what the third one was, but that was part of what would be stations. And there's don't make volleyball players run. We had our girls mic'd up. I love that.
we just saw short court real quick. What do you like about short court? Mike Wall's with the USA national team right now, and they were just playing short court with
There
the
you go.
the best volleyball players in the country. Um, Pros and
Yeah,
benefits of short court.
I mean, short court. When you go about all this, we probably do short court at least twice a week. And again, we
Okay.
don't do pepper, so I think that replaces pepper. And again, variations of short court where it's 2-on-2 with a smaller court. Anything that's a smaller court and is 2 or 3 players to me is short court. That's what we would call it in our
Yep.
gym. But again, maximizing touches. So in 6-on-6, obviously there's times we don't touch the ball. Very similar to beach, we're getting more and more touches, spacing out the court. And then I love the tactics of it because do I use a blocker? Do I have 2 people back? Is there a reason for me to have a blocker or be 2 people back? I've got to read the pass. If the pass is tight, do they pull the Nikolov thing and just let it go over or things like that? So I love the nuances of stuff like that because you're looking at a middle who's playing with a cast on right there. She had broken her thumb that summer, and a libero. But the middles in particular, I take a lot of pride in our middles and how they play. Because they play very free and they're great volleyball players. And I think making sure that your middles are doing stuff like that is really important. Oh, here's a
Uh,
great one.
okay, so warm up's done now. We're gonna get into practice, and now we're gonna start talking about how you teach some skills. But hey, you've tossed, like you said, hundreds of thousands of balls. Let's
160
just
million, I
watch
bet.
this one real quick. Let's just watch this one real quick. Like, is this just because coaches need to
God.
have fun doing this
The
job
coaches
also?
need to have fun. So this was, and I'm hitting at Anna De Beer. And Anna De Beer, oh, here's the coach's arm. I'll talk about that in a second. But
Yeah.
Anna De Beer, for her whole career, would dig a cart of balls at the end of practice. It was almost just like putting on your jersey. It was just
Yeah.
part of the day for her. So just her in particular, and we probably had 5 to 6 players that would just dig a cart of balls at the end because they just wanted to. And so over her career, I thousands of balls I hit at her at the end of practice. So then at some point I was just like, this is a lot of balls. So I just started the first ball every time I would try and throw it behind my back and hit it. And sometimes I couldn't do it. And eventually I got good at it for no good reason. There's no reason to have that skill. But a coach's arm is a real thing. You go to the next one with coach's arm.
Yep.
Um, I was played back in the day, and you always, if you're spinning the ball, you usually toss with your hitting hand. coaches, it's way more efficient to toss with your left, the minimal wrist movement, and then keeping the ball by your ear. And it's funny, John Cook was the first coach that I ever worked for, and that was back kind of when Toshi was with the national team. So a lot of assistants and managers were only as good as your arm were. And so he was really big on teaching like a coach's arm, and I got really, really good with my arm, and I could hit 20,000 balls like that in a day and not feel it on my shoulder. And I think there is still space for that. We've gone away from that, which I think is a good thing. I wasn't a big fan of the national team when, Toshi and all that was going on. I didn't think that was the American style. But I do think coaches having a good arm is pretty important as far as stuff like this, because players do want to feel success. These are just success reps. I want to
Yeah.
build my confidence for digging. Is she ever going to dig a ball that someone's hitting on the same side of the net at her? No, but is she going to make a movement that feels like that all the time?
Yep.
So
So, and then you're not tossing here, but just real quick before we get into some of these teaching methods that you're getting into, just how important is it that a volleyball coach and a volleyball assistant coach can toss a volleyball to the right spot with the right height, with the right speed, with the right consistency? Because I had a kid come into my boys' open gyms a couple months ago, said, "Hey, I want to coach. Okay, come to open gym tonight. We'll meet you." And he couldn't toss a ball. Literally could not toss a ball. And I thought this might not quite work out here yet. But
it's a hard skill.
and why is it hard? How can we get better at it? And why is it important?
I think there should be some rhythm to it, and you just have to you have to do it. You have to get your reps like anything else. It's like, how did passers become great? Because they passed a lot of balls. But tossing is super hard. But in our gym, you can see with our attacking, we toss as coaches every day. We might get to, we're probably going to talk about slide. One of
Yeah.
the things I do for teaching a slide is really toss dependent. And if you can take care of just, where the ball's going, it's almost like a great setter. It's like if my setter's great and I know where the ball is going, then I can really work on some things with my attacking. If I don't know where the heck the ball is going, it's really hard for me to like fix my approach. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get to the ball. So I think as coaches, having a really precise toss is pretty important. Now, the things we're doing off of a toss, yeah, that's not a huge part of our gym, but I do think the learning process, going back to your first question about fundamentals, if I can take the variance of them learning their approach off of a toss, they know where it's going. I don't have to flub that 5 or 6 times. I think that speeds up the learning process. So for us, for me, I know as a tosser, the follow through and having a little bit of rhythm to it, like I step as I toss, has really helped me out. And I told you before we talked about this, I'm the best tosser in the world. That's the one thing I'll be braggy about. I'm a great tosser.
Hey, you're also the best Instagrammer, probably.
There you go. That's a close
I
second to my
mean, you're no
tossing
Taylor
ability.
Swift, but but in our realm of, okay, so you have this real, you call it typical rally,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna show this because I think this is gonna help us learn as coaches what goes on in a match, what goes on in a rally, and then what do we need to practice, like what do we need to practice on Wednesday to prepare for a Thursday match? And if we know what's happening on Thursday or what's going to happen in some of these rallies, then we know what to practice. And so you have this list of things, and we don't need to go through all of these, but how does knowing what happens just throughout the course of a volleyball rally, volleyball set, volleyball match, volleyball season, how does knowing those things help us in practice planning?
Well, I remember the motivation behind posting this one in particular was like, we might have been ranked number 3 in the country at this point, and it was like typical NCAA Division I rally. And it's not perfect. It's a short serve that takes the middle out, so the middle's not available. Here's a cover ball that goes out of system. And then, okay, our setter gets taken out again. Our middle fell. Here's the best libero in the country. She misses her out of system
Yep.
set. So then we tip to take the outside out. Setter gets it again. Okay, we get an opportunity to correct our out of system, and it's actually pretty good. Goes to the deep corner. Then we go for the bick and it goes off right back. Like it
Yep.
was not perfect. It wasn't not perfect, but it's like, again, we strive to be, it's just such a hard game, and the best make mistakes. The best don't do it perfectly. So again, the big motivation behind this one was the fact that even the best do things below average sometimes. Like I think what sticks out in this one is that Elena Scott, who I think is the best libero maybe to ever play college, missed her first out of system set. It was like a pretty
Yep.
easy ball. It was high up in the air forever, and she missed it 10 feet inside. The rally went on. The hitter made a great decision to take the other outside out. And then that next out of system, she nailed it. And it's like, that's volleyball. Like, but man, especially when we get campers too, they're so hard on themselves. And it's like, I really want people to understand, like, these are some of the best players in the world. And watch this. This is how normal rallies look in our gym all the time.
Yep.
We make mistakes constantly, but we learn quickly and we adjust and we're very, very resilient.
So knowing what happens kind of most commonly is going to help us know where to spend our time, right? We talked about this a couple days ago. Do we spend our time on something that might happen once a season, or do we spend our time on something that's happening every other rally?
All the time. So yeah, and I think too, I didn't get the feedback after that, but I could almost guarantee you the feedback in that 6-on-6 might have been great job taking the outside out. Great
Yep.
decision there. Not Elena, what are you doing with that out of system? We've got, like, she knows that that ball wasn't there.
Yeah.
The hitter couldn't even jump and hit it. Like, she knows that. So we spend our time appreciating the things that actually did go well within the chaos.
So every rally starts with the serve, and just talk us through some of these teaching keys and cues that you give. So you have the word routine here. What do you like about a serving routine?
I think routine's everything. So we talk about that at every camp we do. I think the mental part of the game is so important. So no matter what that might be, I love the routine. And I was just at the boys national championship, and Long Beach has a guy who slaps the ball. Have you seen this? And the whole
Yep.
crowd slaps when he slaps the ball. So his routine has turned into this really
Yeah.
cool experience. But I love the mental reset of a routine. I think that that's just like breathing. Like, that's a non-negotiable in volleyball. You have to have that with your service. The only time that you're in complete control of what's happening in the game.
Yeah, Rob Browning and I coached a girl at St. Mary's, and she wasn't a great server, and she had no routine. In fact, Rob and I joked her routine is no routine, and I still talk about that with some of my players, my high school players. Like, have something, have something.
Gotta
It's
have
not much.
something. Yep.
Okay, so then just the footwork. It's a 4-step serve approach: step, step, toss, step, step.
Yeah. So, and again, another GMS thing I think I got a long time ago, 1-2 toss, 1-2 hit. And I really do think the more I've watched great jump float servers, that they have 2 steps after they toss. And within that, I think there's some creativity. Yes, I've seen some people. Tori Dilfer was one of the greatest servers that we had. She did kind of the little shuffle hop for her last two, and she
Okay.
was great. So the last part of this bomb, I think, is the bigger part of it,
Yeah.
because the jump float sometimes has evolved into the hop float, and there isn't much lift. And there certainly isn't enough bomb on the ball. And so it begs the question of, like, why are we even jumping? This was Briggy Petrenko for us, who was a transfer for her 5th year and one of the best servers we've ever had. She had insane knuckle on the ball, and she was one of those servers you can see here that she really landed pretty far into the court. But her serve wasn't always the most, like, it's not like I would break that down and be like, hey, all young servers, you should
Uh-huh.
serve exactly like this player. Like, I think her toss is kind of as she's taking her second to last step. I would rather that toss would be earlier and that she could have 2 full steps and get bigger. But again, she was our best server that year. International player, excuse me, I think kind of developed her jump float at her previous school, and she was fantastic. So driving hard, getting into the court, full extension. I've gotten way less away from the technique of serving than I used to be, probably in my younger days.
We get asked at every coaching clinic, uh, do we like one-handed toss or two-handed toss? So here's a
What do you say?
two-handed
I'm curious
toss.
your answer.
Well, I studied 35,000 serves a couple years ago, Rob Browning and I, and the two-handed toss, and we have a blog post about it on Gold Medal Square. The two-handed toss has a very slightly higher ace percentage and a very slightly higher error percentage, but it does have a higher point scoring percentage, higher knockout percentage than a one-handed toss. But to
Interesting.
me and to us, it was sixes, and we just let the players do what they feel is natural.
Yeah, and I like that last line there. I don't know when this one was from, but don't get too locked into what your serve should look like and get more into what your serve should result in.
Oh, I
And I
love
think
it.
that's the
Yeah.
number one thing with serving. I went to a Penn State camp on the men's side when I was young, and I still remember Mark Pavlik talking about serving should be like pitching. And in pitching, change speeds, change locations, and throw strikes. And I think serving is the same thing in our game, where it's like, make your serve, change speeds, and change locations, and really hit your zones.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty important.
Um, So, uh, how do you like the contact to be? I think we're gonna get into to some videos where
For
you show
younger
the contact.
players and for all the high school coaches that are here, one of the best things I've seen, because again, I'm coaching 10 and unders now, and so I'm relearning how to teach really, really basic skills. The contact for us should be like you just won a 5 set match and you're in the locker room and you give like the best high five you've ever given anybody. And like what
Awesome.
I say too is like don't like win that high five. So if I give this high five, like I should win it and go through the person who I'm high fiving, where I don't just kind of high five and just drop. Like I just won, like boom, I'm gonna get that high five. And we have them do it with the players in camp, and it
Uh-huh.
really, really helps with what that should feel like. So even while they're going through their reps, but for us, the contact, this is Anna DeBeer who had what we call the Barbie hand. She kind of kept her fingers together. We also had some that had them slightly apart. I don't know that that totally matters because we've had good success with both. But I do think it should feel like a really solid, good high five
That's
with
awesome.
another two-handed toss.
Yeah. So, what do you prefer?
Ball that gets them out of system.
Okay.
So I want them to explore it, and I want like I I don't want them thinking too much about that. Like if I think about my best, I was a top spin server. When I think about my best top spin serve I ever had, I'm not really thinking about where that was. I felt it. You know what I mean? Like there was some rhythm to it. So we got 10 minutes a day where we've got different challenges with serving, but we want them to kind of feel the result and kind of reverse engineer what that should be. Because again, we've had servers that look so different and well and be successful in different ways. So I don't get too locked into that.
So you have here jump or hop, watch till the end, and this is the last one. Is this just because you love that this athlete? She's jumping. She's
And
in
that
the
is a
air. She's
jump
big and strong, and
float. Yeah.
yeah.
So and again, it's when you get that view, you see what is possible for a jump float. And some of the taller players, like we've got a 6'6" middle who's got a jump float, and she's not getting super high off the ground, but her contact point is already so high. But for some of those shorter players, it's like you better be getting off the ground, or that jump float isn't doing much for you.
Here's that kind of you just won the match high five you're talking
There you
about.
go. Yep. And then I love the feedback on this view too of just the ball where you hit that dead center of the ball. And we always talk about too, people go like, how do I get that thing to float? And it's like if
Uh-huh.
you had the ball and you were able to draw a straight line through it, it's like you want to keep your hand on that line the whole way through and keep that hand flat. And I think this is a really good view of that.
So are we
Great
talking?
great
Are
GIF
we
that they sent
talking?
too.
Are we talking a line both ways?
Yeah, and probably more of the second one that
Okay.
you drew, and almost if I could do it three-dimensionally, like if this were the ball, where I'm going right through the horizon, just kind of the middle of
Yeah.
the ball,
Okay.
and just kind of keeping my hand flat through there. A lot of times when we see spin, to me, you'd have to see it broken down, but it's like that hand is either dropping or going up while it's kind of contacting the ball. That's just a great example of just how to get that thing to float. And look, and she finishes on that line as well.
Yep. I think this is the same clip. You just had
Oh, look
zoomed
at
in a little
this.
bit. Um, and so, do you have ways of tracking this? Right? Do you ask players to go serve 10 balls and see how many serves have no spin or have float?
No, to be honest, I think our players know uh, the goal of getting the ball to float and getting the spin off of the ball. But like you saw in the very first one, a big thing for us is that they bomb, and sometimes the ball is going to
Yep.
spin. Like we want to be back there bombing our serve, and so it's the aggression, it's the mentality of it more than it is just like the result of like it needs to look like that. This was a fun one. This was on Easter. This was not that long ago in April. So I think we had a piece of candy in there or something for them too. Like whoever hit the egg got it. Um,
Okay.
that was a good one. So
So
that's a Todd Chamberlain.
how often do you do little games like this? Because now we're gonna see
All all the time.
you have a
All
stack
the
of cups
time.
in the next video here.
Oh yeah. And
So
stuff
she
like
won
that.
some candy.
And then she got pegged by a friend, I heard. This was a fun one too. So we mix up our small targets. We've got so many different ways. Again, with our serving, a lot of it's results based. So we do small targets some days where we put little markers like standing up on the court, stuff like this, where you're trying to hit a really small, just a little small target. We also put boxes off the court sometimes where you're trying to skip the ball in the court, then into the box. So we've just got different
Yep.
results based things we're trying to get our servers to do, which I really like. So, and this is another progression for our serving. where instead of just going back to the end line and serving, we're like, hey, if you could serve from 20 feet back, how would you serve? Like go up and get that thing. And so then you move back and you kind of take that technique and how that felt from 30 feet back. So different progressions.
I like this video here, and I'm going to ask you. We've all seen as volleyball coaches a string across the
Yep.
net, and the coach will say, "Go try to serve under the string, but over the net." I actually like to use that same string, but ask my players to try to serve at the string to
Yeah.
give them a little bit margin of error, either maybe a little too high, but it'll still be in, a little too low, but it'll still be in. What do you like your players to aim for here? Obviously, they're aiming for the setter eye, but in a match, what do you like your players to aim for?
That's a great question. So, going back to the same thing I said about pitching, it's like every once in a while over that string isn't the worst thing because it's different. So, we like to have a lot of variety with our servers. Like, I think this year we'll have, two servers from zone one, we'll have two from zone five, we'll have probably one from zone six, and I don't know where that sixth server will come from. We've got a hybrid server who tosses high with two, we've got somebody who goes off one, all of the different varieties. But I think probably the best serve, like you said, would be kind of right at that string. I know that some of our more high ace servers have been lower, where it's like they're getting some of those dribble aces. But again, I think probably at that string about 2 feet above. And this is that's Kara Cressy again with the jump topspin serve. That's Ava Utterback. We absolutely love the topspin serve. Now, we haven't had a topspin server in a match in a while, but the topspin serve, I've always said if I had a tryout, like I have to do a 12-year-old team and I have 3 minutes, the tryout's 3 minutes, I have to pick my team. I would have them all try to execute the jump topspin serve. And I would probably get a pretty good team just watching the athleticism and the timing of trying to do this skill. I think it's the hardest thing to do in volleyball. So this is a middle for us. I
Yep.
love the athleticism because I always think in my head, I go, imagine a middle who just absolutely bombs a topspin serve in the women's game. Like that 6'6" middle there,
Yep.
you can't tell me she's not going to be a great attacker in the front row. Like
Yeah.
one doesn't go without the other. Now you'll see a great attacker in the front row who can't do that, but rarely will you ever see an amazing topspin server who
Yeah.
isn't a great attacker.
Yeah.
You have to be one. So
Yeah, we had a player at St. Mary's, Lindsay Knudsen, and then she came and coached with me here in Utah that would topspin serve to warm up. And she didn't
yeah,
topspin serve in matches, but she would go back there and top serve.
love
And
that.
you would think that she had just ran the New York Marathon because of how much of a workout that was for her and just
Yeah.
how much stronger it made her. And so where
It's such a hard skill. The anticipation of that, I think, is the hardest thing too. With the ball coming down, you taking your approach as you toss it. I have a lot of respect for people who can do a
yeah.
great topspin serve.
Where is the topspin serve right now in in women's volleyball? In your
It's like
opinion, is it getting to where it might be something
you
that we
know
see a
what?
lot more
It reminds
commonly?
me of like Bitcoin. It's very trendy. Like Bitcoin's crushing it, and then it's not the deal, and it is the deal because it's just like everything in volleyball. It goes in cycles,
Yeah.
and so we really had to adjust last season to prepare for great topspin servers, which we hadn't had to do in the past. Now we didn't end up having any, but we would love to have one that can. Again, for us, we feel like a great topspin server in the women's game needs to be getting to 60. They can probably be 55 and above. But if they're below that, it's not nearly fast enough to be effective. So
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be even more prevalent next year, and you better be able to defend it. You don't necessarily have to have one to be competitive, but you can't be getting blown up by one. And
Yeah.
that's the hard thing is if you don't have one in your gym, you're going to get crushed on it on game day because the teams that have one in their gym, they're ready to see one because they see it every day in their gym. If you don't, then you're kind of behind the eight ball. So that
Yep.
was a big change for us last year. Oh,
Here
here
are
we go,
some.
national
Yep.
title.
Yep. National championship match. Here are some of your aces, and I want to point out we could see in some of those Instagram videos you had some tape on the floor
Yeah.
for your servers, and I imagine that's what I use that same tape for. What I call or what we call serve on a line, where we want
Hmm.
our servers to just serve on a line. And so this server here, serving from zone 5, is going to either serve to Penn State zone 1 or Penn State zone 5, and she's going to take her approach there, the toss there, everything in a line. Is that how you're teaching that?
Yes and no. I think there's some variance with that too, of like look away serves and things like that. But for the most part, yes. And really the servers should be working their way into the court at least a little bit. So even that was right on that line. If she's slightly into the court, I think that's okay on a line serve as well. We just don't want her going out to the court or out to the sideline.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
on a line right there. And the video doesn't do it justice on that, but I think Peyton Peterson's serve there has a lot of movement to it. It was kind of that thing we were
yeah.
talking about earlier, where it was just really good flat serve that was moving. And now you can see, I mean, her hips are completely facing the way she's going to be serving.
So everyone
And
in the gym knows where she's going to serve, but do we care about that?
not all the time, but like I said, I don't think all of our servers can be doing that. I think it would just be a little bit too much rhythm for the passers. So we just want to
Okay.
disrupt the rhythm of what the passers are doing. A great team we play against, they have a server whose routine takes forever, and it like annoys our team. But I think it works because it's different. It feels different. Um, but you saw the big thing in our game is the droppers, and that's really hard to train. But you saw a lot of the success we had in the first clips against Penn State were dropping in front of them.
Yep.
That one was probably a miscue by the passer for Pitt, thinking it was going out of bounds. I think this is Peyton Peterson again. Great one that kind of drifts across seams. They've got a sub in right there, so we were kind of exploiting the new player in a tough
Uh-huh.
match. Uh, this Peyton Peterson again. What a match by her. There it is. Now they're kind
Yeah.
of overcompensating on that. Man, if you go back to that one, can you run Peyton's again, just the
Yep.
second one?
This one
What
here.
I what I love about that one is, she's working into the court, and the ball kind of starts in that first seam between the bro and the middle back, and then it continues to drift and continues to drift, and so it just goes across multiple zones.
Yeah.
And again, that front row outside, I mean, at every single level, that front row outside gives people trouble because it's like, man, I'm going to try and help you out. I'm going to try and take too much, and I see a lot of teams get into trouble with that, where again, you're just trying to overcompensate too much for a front row player.
So rapid fire question. If you only had 30 seconds to answer, a coach is passing you in the airport and you got to catch a flight. And he says, Dan, how can my team be a better serving team? And you got to board your flight right now. So you only have 30 seconds to answer. What's your answer?
Oh man, serve more. But yeah, I would say aim small, miss small is a pretty good one. I would put some small targets out there and try and bomb at them. But I would use the word, well, not in an airport, but I would use the word bomb. That they should be absolutely bombing and crushing their serve. Try to serve as hard as they can because you can always reel it back. I think that it's hard to amp up your servers. You got to have them serving free, and then I would say safe travels. So.
You have some reels that show serve speed. And
Mhm.
you've heard, just like I've heard at AVCA conventions, where coaches come in and say, we think 36 miles per hour is the perfect speed for a float serve. And I think that's way too slow. You
That seems
probably
very,
think
very
that's too
slow.
slow from what I've seen on your Instagram reels. You're 41, 42, 43 miles per hour. That's what my high school team was at when we were studying all that with girls' float serves.
Yeah, the serve speed, it's interesting. I've seen more and more teams tracking their serve speed for matches, which we've never done. Because, like I said, we're very results based, but not numbers based. It's more results on bad pass. That drop serve that we saw that was an ace against Penn State in the national championship, that thing was probably at, again, the 35, but that was because it dropped. So for us, what we found is, yeah, above 40 and below 45 is going to get the ball to move and shake and, knuckle. And if you're trying to serve above 45, you need to be behind the end line by a few
Yeah.
feet, or you
Yeah.
need to be physically pretty impressive where you're really that's 45, and that second one was actually out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so 42, that's kind of dialed in for like
That's
at
my
the end, yeah, at the end line with some float and can still hit the other end line. If you start going above that, you need to be backed up or you need
yeah.
to have a little bit of spin on the ball. That's where we're getting to what I call hybrid territory, where the elbow's starting to drop a little more and you're starting to kind of snap on it a little bit more.
Well, and I
Now,
just
that's the one I
ask
was talking about that was out.
I ask myself when people ask me how fast should the serve be? Well, if I was the passer, I would rather pass a 36 mile per hour serve than a 43 mile per hour serve, right?
For sure.
And so we don't want to do what our opponents want us doing. So, okay.
That's a great way
Um,
of thinking about it.
After the serve, there's the pass, and you have some reels here with some passing cues and some passing keys that you like to share with passers. Just talk us through some of these that you use, some of the terminology as you teach
Yeah.
passing.
Yeah, and passing is one of those things that people get really like I don't know, they get very like offended by like how people train passing and whatnot because I don't know, it's such a hard skill to really understand. So for us, we like having a wide base. We've had great passers with great success having a wide base, the angle out, platform out, and then the hold your angle. So I get a lot of feedback both ways on hold your angle. Like, does that matter? I watched Jordan Larson pass, and she's a great passer, and she breaks her platform. And it's like, that's great. She's passed like a million balls in her life. And, she might have worked on holding her angle when she was 16 to find that nuance she has now as a, 20-year veteran. So for us, a lot of times these cues are more to get us maybe outside of our head and into a specific thing because I do think passing is so hard. So for us, I do like this one a lot. Feet wider than knees, knees wider than hips, and then freeze on contact. Because again, if you can kind of keep your feet a little bit outside of your body, I like that for being like firm to the ground and just comfortable so that you can have more control with your platform. But too many times, I think in passing, I think something to stay away from is just like too specific of what it takes to have a great pass. Again, reverse engineer. If you can find a way to get it to target, work your way back on how that might feel. Do we have people that pass with their feet close together sometimes? Yes. Do we have people pass with one foot off the ground sometimes? Yes. But we don't want them thinking when their foot comes off the ground, oh no, I better not have done this. We're just trying to give them simple cues, get their angle out, get a ball at our center and get our hands on.
How about this one?
So
Body away from platform.
yeah, I like that one a lot. Now, that's Elena Scott, who's just such a natural passer. And you can see this ball jams her in the midline. I think a big thing right now for passers is like pick a side. I think Karch is really big on that. I think that helps. Karch has done a lot for our game. I think that helps our game when he's talking about simple things. And that's the wrong probably side to pick, but she commits and she goes to it. I actually heard this the other day from a great volleyball mind talking about younger players are less decisive. And as you get better, you're more decisive, even if it's wrong. And I think Elena Scott is an exceptional passer. And you saw in the first one, she picked the wrong side, but she committed and then she made a great pass. And then I like this one too, open up, don't back up. So if you feel like the ball's hitting you up high, you just swing one of those hips open and you open up, don't back up. I don't like using the word, don't or negatives in coaching, but I think that's a pretty simple one. So I would be pretty, again, in the airport conversation, that would be a big one. Pick a side, open up, don't back up. I think those things all help with passing. But
And
I like
are you?
midline passing. If it's in front of you, I like midline passing. I know that
Yeah.
that's like, blasphemy now, but I don't mind it.
No,
That's
we
how
love
that's how
it.
I like to pass.
We still love it. Um,
Yeah.
are you training? Are you training this move in a block setting where you say, "Hey,
Yes.
passer, I'm gonna throw 20 balls deep to your right, and you're just gonna make this move 20 times, and then 20 to
Yeah.
the left."
Again, like cycles, we do probably passing stations at least 3 times. We have 5 practice days, at least 3 times a week, if not more. And one of them would cover something like this, whether it's a live coach off of a box, kind of jamming again, on a box elevated so they can really jam you up high and actually have it be in. So they're driving a float serve deep at your shoulders. And then we use the ball machine a ton, which we went away from for years. But now, again, with the top spin, we're starting to use that more. And this is probably block training you're talking about, where a coach is
Yeah.
on the other side trying to serve. It might even be me serving that, but just trying to serve basically, 7 to 10 balls to that deep corner, catching her by her shoulder. And she's just working on, hey, pick a side, get my angle out, try to be stopped when I'm contacting that ball. So, yeah, we definitely work on those success reps, those blocked reps quite a bit.
And then what do you mean by light feet? We saw light feet at the end of the last video there.
Yeah, so we don't want to take a million steps, but we certainly, even if the ball doesn't move us, I think we want to be taking steps. So light feet would be, hey, the ball's right at me. I like this calm eyes, calm feet. You can see
Uh-huh.
her eye level. But as far as light feet go, if the ball's right at me and I don't have to move, if I looked at your feet, you probably still should have a reset 1, 2, 3, 4, or
Yeah.
a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's kind of light feet for us. We don't have concrete feet where we're stuck.
Yeah. So just some sort of shuffle move, even if it's a tiny shuffle move.
Yes. Yeah.
And then this is what we would call face the ball,
Yep.
and then platform to target.
Yep. And this was, I mean, this stuff's like seems basic, but like when you can get the angle, it's like you'll see so many teams where, the passer's facing the setter or facing straight to the net when the server's coming across
Uh-huh.
from them. It's just like very basic stuff.
So just look at the server. Easy.
Just face the server. There you go.
And then now we'll see some of those same cues, some of those same teaching methods
See, that was like a
in
midline
the
pass,
national championship match.
wasn't that? Did she shuffle that? That's Charity Looper. Go back to that one. I mean, he kept the ball in front of her. Shuffle.
Yeah, we would
Ain't
call that
nothing.
midline.
Ain't
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I heard really young, and it made a lot of sense. It's like your platform forms a triangle, and then your toes to your hips form a triangle. And as long as your platform is between your feet, you can just keep your shoulders level. And that was one of the only ways I passed well is when I did that. So I don't mind midline passing like that.
Talk about passing posture because this is something we get asked about a lot. So I love that you have your passers, some with their hands on their knees, some just kind of hanging relaxed. But how low do you like them? How high do you like them? How athletic do you like them here as they're preparing to pass?
That's a great one. You could even back up again if you want. But yeah, so I'll work left to right across people's screen here. So
Okay.
Charity Looper is standing up a little bit more straight. She's also the furthest distance from the server, so that might just be vision. I mean, she's got 6 players between her and the server, so she might just be jockeying for position there.
Uh huh.
Elena Scott is really low. You could almost balance a beanbag on her back, and she's got her hands on her knees. And then Peyton Peterson's in left back over there. She's got uh, arms down, not out, and she's kind of, I would say, between the two. She's a taller player than Charity, so she's higher, but she's not standing more upright. So that's something that we like don't talk about.
Okay.
It's not something that we want to have on their checklist of like, okay, I better do this, I better do that. But what we do talk about is that line of vision to where like once the ball is getting served or once the server is taking their approach, that we're not making big movements. And right on cue, again, when we play, we're not thinking about these things. Elena Scott went from really low to a little bit higher. I
Yeah.
think because she wanted to travel, like she was reading the server going to that zone. But then her eyes stayed pretty consistent as she shuffled to the ball, and then we saw that ace earlier. I love this move personally. It's like if I'm there to pass the ball, just pass the ball. So there's a lot of times you would hear, front row outside should not take this ball.
Uh
Like,
huh.
the server won. They got the front row outside to pass the ball. But I think the more we complicate the seams, the harder it gets. So I'm kind of okay with that. And we're just trying to approach straight to the net when that happens. But yeah, with video, would I want Peyton Peterson cutting off Elena Scott to pass the ball? No, but I want Peyton Peterson being really confident passing the ball. So yes, like I want her to think like I'm a great passer. I'll pass the ball. So no big deal.
So just the four coaching keys that you give again: feet wider than
Feet
feet
wider
and
than
nice
hips.
athletic. Um,
Yeah.
hold your
Yeah.
angle.
Hold your
Nice,
angle.
calm,
You know,
quiet feet,
open up if you feel like you want to back up
and
is
then
a big
open up.
one. And I think pick a side. I think there's a lot of space for that in volleyball. Like, but I don't think it's like that's the only thing I would do passing. Like, hey, pick a side, pick a side, pick a side. It's like that first pass from Charity couldn't have looked more simple. And it was just kind of right at her. And she didn't pick a side. She just shuffled to the ball and
Yeah.
passed it to target. Nothing wrong with that.
And even here, she's working hard to get it close to midline.
Yeah. So it's off her left hip there. Her feet are narrow, so we're trying to get it wider if we can, but the angle is what's important. And if you go back, like this is what I again, this is the national championship. This was as good as our team played, all year to get to that point. But we saw the exact same play where Peyton Peterson took the ball, and then we
Yeah.
saw this play, and Elena Scott took the ball, and at no point would our coaching staff be giving them feedback on which was right or which was wrong. I don't care. Like what I care about is that they were decisive and
Uh
that
huh.
they passed the ball. And I think sometimes we lose ourselves in coaching of like watching those two clips being like, well, which one was right? It's like both were. Both were good passes. Nothing wrong with that. So just getting your players to play free. That's a really hard thing to do.
Favorite passing drill.
Serve and pass off boxes. So we call it SPOB. But again, server is up on a box. I like that because it controls their toss. It actually does work on serving, and then it drives their serves flatter. And if I could, put a cherry on top with that one, I would stat it so that the passers know there's some feedback on it.
Okay, and we saw that when we were looking at some serving reels
That
that you
was
had
Elena
done.
Scott was
Yep,
on that Instagram reel, and Todd was handing balls to her. We saw that one earlier in the video.
yep, awesome. Okay, after the pass, hopefully you can set. And so, um, how do you like to teach setting, and take us through some of these setting cues and keys that you like to give?
Man, so I just switched over to the offensive side of the ball. So I trained setters this spring for the first time in 8 years. And what I learned was I still really like what I call a strong hop. I like 2 feet to the ball and setting off of 2 feet when possible. So that right there to me is a strong hop. And maybe it's a medium strong hop, but like she kind of hops to the spot and then she's able, if she could, to go straight up would be great. There's some drift here, which is okay. And then I think there's definitely a place for some 1 foot spin. But I like the setters to be able to kind of explore, but we really do like squaring up again. I'm just coming off of watching the men's national championship. So Moni Nikolov is like otherworldly. And it's funny, I watched a
Yeah.
boys' high school practice for the first time in years a month ago. And the setter was setting like him. He was coming with this really wide approach to the ball because he's watching this great player. So I think that's cool personally. Like I would never teach that. Like, hey, you should like do the breaststroke to set the ball, but that's what that dude's doing. So for us, I like this target here. We're pretty results based on stuff like that. We're way more obsessed with distance off the net than we are distance along the net.
Okay.
So if you can get a really consistent distance uh, to the net, so let's call it 4 feet, like 4 feet off the net. I think it's really easy for hitters to cut that off. If it's to the pin, if it's 4 feet inside, that's okay. As long as it's not, okay, this ball's on top of the tape, the next ball is 6 feet off and it's behind me,
Uh-huh.
because that timing to approach, it's easy to make adjustments left and right. It's hard to change your momentum and change the distance of your approach. So that's big for us. This is one of the big keys. If people are, subscribers and watching this, they've fixed this, I'm sure, but facing the passer as a setter, I mean, that is like 50% of all setters' problems at like the
Okay.
16-year-old age and below is that they're facing the what would be the go, or they're not even getting to a setter's position. They're just kind of hanging out wherever they came from. I think that's
Yep.
a really, really simple fix that just, if you're not fixing that and you're working on something else, it's like you're not getting to the root cause. The root
Yep.
cause a lot of times is like get to the specific spot first. So we do a lot of warming up our setters 5 to 10 minutes off of a toss, working on some of those footwork patterns, working on setting from releasing, working on setting from a transition where we make a block move. Pretty simple stuff like that.
So, are you looking at the setter's hips when you're seeing if she's facing the passer,
So
or
it's an interesting.
shoulders, or
It's an
feet,
interesting.
toes?
So feet, I think, are pretty important. That I've started to find myself looking at feet here. So this is a great long distance back set here, and I like that those feet get to the sideline. They don't necessarily get to the go. Now she gets a little pigeon toed with her right,
Uh-huh.
but like her foot really is kind of would be facing the sideline. But I think that's okay. Like to me, whoever's filming this is at the 10-foot line. She's not quite squared up to the go. She's almost squared up to that 10-foot line, but her feet are to the sideline, which I think is good. Yeah, and then finishing over that right shoulder. And then I think for back setting too, obviously finishing that move as you watch this play out, almost like she could cover and she's going around
Yeah.
her right shoulder. But this is Naelis Caballo, who I think is, one of the best setters in the country here. Her finish, where it's like the ball obviously fits in her hands there, it fits in her hands there, and then it kind of goes away down there. But she
Yeah.
holds that as long as she can, almost like she's placing that ball along the line that she wants to set it. It's a really
Yep.
hard skill. She's a very, very strong setter. Like this is a very hard set that she makes.
Yep.
And
So
she's gonna
ball
make a
shaped.
lot next year.
So she's got ball shaped hands here, and she's gonna. Courtney Thompson likes to say ball shaped hands before, during, and after the set.
Yeah,
We're
that's
gonna
a
see
great
that
cue.
here. And then in your last reel that we just saw, you say even hands on finish. What do you mean by even hands? Just that we're not having this crazy stuff going on?
And I keep going back to Nikolov, but I've got some zoomed in video of him because he's so exceptional. And man, he never does that. His hands are like all over the place. But yeah, I really like thinking
He's
thinking
an
about.
outlier.
He is a total outlier, but I do like thinking about those big hands staying even throughout the movement, because there is a natural tendency as like a righty or a lefty to kind of finish maybe stronger on our right or our left. This is Tori Dilfer here, who I think has really good even hands there. Like clearly there's some flick action with her wrist as she finishes, but I mean, look at how kind of, again, even those hands are as she finishes.
Well,
She shaped the
and
ball.
yeah,
Courtney would like that, right?
Yeah, they're still ball-shaped hands.
Yeah.
It's a great example of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just rotating kind of the body around this. If we had an axis through the right side of our body, right hip, right shoulder,
Yeah,
and we're just making
always
it
over our
rotate.
right shoulder there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just always kind of through our right shoulder and kind of feeling that line that we want to set that ball along. But just as we back set that finish and follow through our right shoulder has kind of been a pretty long staple in our gym. But this is a great technical setter. I mean, Tori was one of the best when you would just watch stuff like this of how you would want to set a ball. I think we talk about using the ground a little bit more too, of just like when you are on the ground, if you're going to jump or you're going to set with your feet flat, there needs to be some power that's generated from your knees up through your hips, and then that comes out through the ball.
Yeah,
There's
I like seeing this left knee kind of kick out and give you some of that power that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny, and I'm coming as like a novice when it comes to training setters as far as watching film. Like I've watched less film in the last 8 years than a lot of people training setters. But what I'm noticing is that kind of holding or releasing of power. And with the knee, if that knee goes up and then starts to go back down, you've lost the power that you created bringing the knee up. If you contact right at the kind of the peak of that knee coming up, you've used that power through the ball. The same thing applies when you go off of 2 feet. And what I've started to see with great setters is there's this, like when you jump off 2 feet, there's this little kick that happens. And if that kick happens before you set the ball, a lot of times you've lost the power you created from the ground. But if you stay kind of coiled, and then as you set, that kick comes out, then you're kind of using the power through your body. That's just what I've seen from great setters.
Okay, then talk us through this one. Strong finish.
I love that emoji. I use it all the time. Um, no, but I think that's the same thing of that power coming through the ground. And I think it's the way you land too. Like if you land with a pitter patter, multiple steps, it really wasn't like a strong move to the ball. But if you land and you're able to kind of cut to your next movement, that's a pretty strong finish. So back in the day, I think we used to like set and then like do a squat. So you would show that you were like really calm or really controlled in the spot. That's kind of old school at this point.
Yeah, yeah, just back to Courtney. She likes to say set with conviction. Like
Oh, I like
go set
conviction.
the
That's a
ball,
good
have
one.
conviction when you're doing it.
That's a
So
good one.
just walk us through some of what we're seeing here in that national championship match.
Yeah, so at this point in the season in the national championship, a lot of it becomes more tactics than it is technique. So a lot of it's going to be what we're running based on how they're defending. But really solid release there. You can see Ellie exactly what we talked about is Ellie Glock facing the passer, her hips are
Yep.
directly to the passer, and she got to that setter's position. Even if you want to back it up, like this is stuff that's glossed over, but I think she released from what would be her rotation three. Yeah. And this is another thing too, and I know you guys harp on this with the high schools, but like, Ellie right now, if you circle her, is in left back. So we're in a 6-2. So this is row
What
3 or
jersey
6.
number?
That's our setter. So I can't see her
Oh,
jersey,
oh
but
yes, left back. Yep. Rotation 3.
yeah, yeah. Rotationally, she's in again. But a lot of times I see that setter either too far over or not all the way to that middle back passer. And all of that is about the easier release. So again, we glossed over that, but if you just watch Ellie before she does anything, like this is an elite setter. Like how basic did that look? 1, 2, 3,
Yep.
maybe, and she stopped. Like
Yep.
again, I can't harp on enough how you won't see that with the majority of setters that you'll see. They'll take a few extra steps, or they're still kind of leaning as the ball's getting passed, and it's just not that important. But it is pretty important, and she makes it really. I always think great players make things like that look simple because you think they're simple, but they're actually not. So again, I don't want to gloss over the fact of how she got there. Like that was it looked easy, but I think it's glossed over. So
Where
I love the B2 here, by the way. So we're about to run a combination.
where do you want your setter to get to? Like where's your setter starting spot ideally?
So it is along the net. I know some people have their target off the net, so their setter goes off the net, but we
Uh-huh.
like working from the net so that we don't ever work to the net. Just as far as that distance off the net, keeping the ball off. So you'll see our setters for the most part. That was a big thing. This is Naelis Caballo, her freshman year. But this movement for a younger player was harder. Like you can see, she wasn't quite as precise as Ellie. Go
Uh-huh.
back to the release. This is again 6-2. So this is the same rotation. 1, 2, 3. And where is she
Four,
facing?
5. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but 1, 2, 3 was her steps. And then if you watch in the pass, she's facing the go. So this is a
Yep.
younger player who's still working on that really simple quote unquote skill, but it's hard for setters. And then what does she do as she sets the ball? So watch this here. She's facing that way. The ball brings her back, and this would not be that strong finish. Now, she's so strong with her hands, the technique of that didn't matter as much. That was a great set. It was a great set. But she's drifting and falling back. Maybe she's a little bit easier to read. Who knows? Love
Even
that.
here, even here, you can see this little slight rotation through the right side of her body
Yep.
as she ends up facing the hitter that
And
she's.
when we talked about light
Yeah.
feet, I think is another thing that high school coaches can take. The quick is so hard to set. One thing we've had really good success with our setters is a light finish. Just thinking about when we set quick, a lot of times it's quick, so we want to finish quick. And when we get quick, it gets like tight. So we talk about like a light, long finish on quicks, which has helped us. But now we're starting to look at some slides here. And
Well, and this is a super easy move from row two,
yeah,
and
so two is
just
just a
so
step.
calm, so
Yep.
simple, and she's facing the passer like you talked about.
One of the smoother setters that you'll see. So I love players that make things look simple because volleyball's not a simple game. But pretty fast tempo on the slide there. There's the top spin server we talked about. This is again our rotation two where our opposite was running a two ball. So that was maybe a we do a 4 point scale, maybe a 3 point pass, but obviously the
Uh-huh.
two balls behind and creates a one on one, which is awesome. So again, at this point in the season, there was so much offensively that was just based on tactics. Um, Another one-on-one that we created. Run that one back again quick if you would. So that's rotation three. Short serve, maybe trying to jam up the quick, but Pitt's pretty consistent on a pinch read, and they kind of almost commit with the quick there. I mean, they're moving
Yep.
on the set, which isn't super. That's not typically how they defend, to be honest. They're usually pretty good about being stopped when the ball's being
Uh-huh.
set, but it creates a great one-on-one.
Are you as coaches looking to see how you're being defended against gaps so that you can communicate that, hey, they're fronting a gap, they're not fronting a gap, so that your setter knows in her decision making what she wants to
Yeah,
do?
I think that's a big part of it, and obviously, weaker blockers is probably a bigger thing. But then, offensively, and like I told you, I'm a novice when it comes to doing offense. It's going to be my first year in 8 years. I've done it prior, but I think with everything that we do, it was the same thing when I was doing defense. Is like playing to your strengths. So there might be some slight adjustments based on how a team's going to defend you. But you can't lose your identity. Like you've got to do the things that complement your talent the best and then small tweaks within that. But if you're completely changing who you are based on how somebody's defending, I think you've lost your identity as an offense. So a little bit, we run into a lot of teams that are in a pinch read though. Like they're in a pinch read, they're kind of in there with the gap, but they don't help a ton. And a great quick set usually is going to win. So it's more about how well you run it. But here's maybe a two pass for us that could be, on the verge of a three. But here's that right, finishing along the right side. I would say it's a
Yep.
pretty strong finish. Ellie's not finishing. Sometimes you'll see a setter do this set and they'll finish almost on the end line. Let's see where Ellie kind of ends up after she
Yeah.
sets.
Well, and even hands like you talked
Even hands
about,
we talked about.
ball shaped hands still strong, the right rotation. It's Well, I already know it's going to end with a kill because I cherry
There you
picked the
go.
clips here.
But yeah, I mean, to watch Ellie finish like that and not even have any movement that goes where the ball was passed from was pretty impressive. So this would be Nay's rotation one, where we've got another combination coming. We did a lot of that with our right side of running a lot of two wall because we love running slides. Like we had, all our middles could run slides really well, which we're seeing a lot of here.
Yep.
Um, and then if you run that one back, I mean, I'll just kind of finish on a little bit of relationship on the slide, but they're serving down that line maybe to pin our slide, which doesn't work great against us because we're pretty good running it straight in. We don't care. And like I would say that this slide is tighter to the sideline than most slides, but it opens up our range. So we try to make that penultimate, that kind of last two-step finish super dynamic and be kind of the only thing we worry about with slides. So the footwork here is 1, 2, 3, and that's it. And Ellie's able to set that ball, our setter, from almost a 2 point pass. I mean, she's at
Yeah.
the 10-foot line. And really, with us on a slide, we're almost just trying to drop that ball or put that ball through. We tape a box at right front that's kind of 3 feet off, and 3 feet off the net, and then 3 feet from the sideline. Just put the ball through that box, and our middle will cut that ball off when it's there. And we've had really good success in and out of system doing that.
Yep. I want to ask one more setting question here because let's watch your setter here. She's going to rotate her body clockwise in a clockwise rotation here, right, to get to
Yeah.
the passer. Um, and that's from row 3, and then you're running a 6-2 in this match. So now we're going to be
Yeah.
in row 6, and your setter's going to rotate counterclockwise. And so so are you letting the setter choose here, or are you specifically
If it
coaching
looks,
one of these footwork
yeah,
patterns?
not coaching one or the other. If it looks silly, we'll watch it on film and hopefully they'll come to the conclusion of why it's silly. But the clear difference on those two was, where the serve was coming from. So we just want to stay opened
Okay.
up to the serve and we want to track the ball at all times. And sometimes as a setter, you can just track that ball by twisting your head and using, your neck. Like you can see it. Other times you're going to have to move your body to kind of track where the ball is coming from. But that's a big key in our gym is tracking the ball, not just kind of losing the ball and moving on to the next play. Because again, volleyball is a really imperfect sport. Weird stuff happens. You have to track the ball. So
Okay,
yeah,
so you
I think if either of them did it the other way, that we would probably show them that and be like, "Why did you turn this way?" You know
Okay,
what I mean?
so
Because it doesn't totally make sense.
your setter here is looking at the ball. When do you want her to get off the ball and then start looking at the passer and read the passer's platform?
That's a great question. That's something we haven't totally talked about with our setters. But I think she's tracking that ball kind of to the net. And then I think you're snapping to an area that you
Yep.
think the ball's passed from. But I do think that's maybe just an under analyzed thing within volleyball is like the anticipation of where the ball is going to land. So after the ball's passed, and I see that with setters where they struggle, they overrun the ball or they, jab step off the net, but the ball's actually going to be tight, is like reading the pass. I'll go back to Elena Scott because she's so exceptional, but our bro in right back here, she was a setter. And when we switched her to libero, she was a natural passer. I think because she was able to see so many angles her whole life, she understood what made a great pass. I think great setters are very good at reading platforms and reading where the pass is going to take them.
Yep.
So
So
it's
it
a really hard skill to learn.
looks like here the setter, as soon as she knows that the ball's not going to hit the net and
Yeah.
dribble over to her, then like you said, she's snapping right to the
Yep.
passer right there. Bam.
But,
And
but again,
choosing
I
the
could see the
passer.
argument for
Yeah.
people trying to have their setter spin the other way there. But to me, that neglects the importance of the ball. Like, I think she needs to stay to the ball.
Yeah.
Like you see how that ball kind of goes with her. So simple stuff, but again, not something that we probably break down a ton. Like I think we try to keep the checklist for players as small as possible. Like here's one less thing you just don't have to worry about. Did I do that right? Or do I have to correct that? Do I have to work on that? We try to keep that list as small as possible.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question from Rob Browning that we can
All
end
right.
this setting section with, and we just posted this question to our gold medal squared community. We had them vote, and you'll be our final vote before we
Oh,
release
wow. I'm curious
the
to see the
results.
result.
And so the question is: rank the following setter attributes most important to least important, and we're listing them in alphabetical order. So
God, what a
deception.
great question.
The setter is tricking the blockers to try to create all these one-on-one scenarios. Decision making. Are we setting the right player at the right time? And I go to your fifth set versus Northern Iowa, and right, the ball is going to go to Anna, right?
Yeah.
When it's match point and then match point and match point again. Just set to Anna, right? So I think that would be decision making, leadership, location, tempo. So rank 1 through 5 here, Dan.
This is a great question. Good job by you guys. I'm really curious to see this. So I would be if I only had these five to go from. I think there's tiers, and I think tier one is location and tempo. That would be my number one thing with a bullet. Not even close. I would probably go location over tempo. If the hitters knew where the ball was going consistently and they were just gnarly on location, I think that would be the premier skill. And then I would put tempo right after that. After that, I think tier two is leadership and decision making. And I would probably put leadership above decision making. I think there could be the argument for leadership to go into tier one, but I think as a setter and as the effect on winning, you can find leadership from other areas. It's great when your setter is a leader, but it's not like a must have. We had a 6-2 last year, so our setter was only on the court half the time. We did okay. So I'd put leadership just slightly. I would put that actually quite a bit above decision making. Um, because I think if your location and tempo is great, your decision making doesn't matter as much because you're putting your hitters in great positions. And then deception is great at the top level, but it's just kind of it's the icing on the cake. So I think deception would be without a question on this list for me fifth. But yeah, great question by you guys.
All right. Well, we'll make you wait because I'm gonna have to throw your results now
Okay, I'm excited to
into our
see.
final tally. Dan, you're awesome. Thank you so much for just making your program and your coaching styles and your coaching techniques available to all of us, to 161 million of us
Yeah, seriously.
throughout the world. And just as we learn, and then as we've learned, just some of the whys to what you're doing on your Instagram channel and in your practice gyms. So awesome to learn from you. It was awesome to hear from you a couple years ago, and awesome to hear from you again throughout this episode. Good luck. I'm excited to root you on this coming season, and just what would your advice be to anyone that is following you on Instagram and seeing your reels pop up over the next however long we're following you for?
Just keep it fun. I mean, volleyball's so fun. It's like, you know what I mean? There's so much nuance with that. That is the fun part of it, is what we are trying to do, what we're learning, what works, what doesn't work. So keep it fun. The game's supposed to be fun. Our interaction's supposed to be fun. You should be looking forward to what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And if that happens to be coaching volleyball, good for you, because that's what I get to do and I love it. So keep it fun. But no, you guys are awesome. Your production value on this always blows me away. Like, I learned stuff on this. So thank you for having me. It was really, it was fun. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Everyone out there, thank you for spending some time with us, for investing in your players and your programs and your coaching career and your coaching methods. Excited to bring more your way. Have a good one, everybody.